What if a 12th century saint foresaw the exact number of popes before the end of the world? What if the Vatican has been hiding a manuscript that predicts its own destruction? And what if we are now living in the final days of that prophecy? In the autumn of 1139, Saint Malachy Omorgare, the fiery Archbishop of Armagh and a man renowned for his miracles and prophecies, made a solemn pilgrimage to Rome. His journey was one of obedience, to meet with Pope Innocent II and receive the pallium, the symbol of his ecclesiastical authority. As Saint Malachy prayed, a vision unfolded before his spiritual eyes. A long, unbroken line of pontiffs, each illuminated by a brief, cryptic phrase that seemed to encapsulate their destiny. One after another, they marched toward a terrible climax, the destruction of Rome and the end of the papacy itself. Trembling, Malachy awoke, his face wet with tears. The vision had been so vivid, so precise, that he feared its meaning was inescapable. Compelled by divine command, Malachy recorded the prophecy in a manuscript titled Prophetia de Summis Pontificibus, the prophecy of the Supreme Pontiffs. He entrusted it to Pope Innocent II, who, upon reading it, was said to have turned pale. The document was then locked away in the Vatican's secret archives, forbidden from public eyes. For over 450 years, the prophecy remained hidden, known only to a select few within the Church's highest ranks. Some popes were said to have consulted it in secret, trembling at the realization that their own reigns had been foretold centuries earlier. Then, in 1590, the unthinkable happened. The prophecy was leaked, or perhaps deliberately released, by a Vatican insider. It was published in Arnold de Wyon's Lignum Vitae, a historical work on the Benedictine order. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Scholars, theologians, and even rival cardinals pored over the text, comparing its cryptic phrases to past popes. To their shock, the descriptions matched with uncanny precision. Ex magnitudine montis, from the greatness of the mountain, Pope Pius III, 1503, whose family coat of arms featured mountains. Fructus Jovis Juvabit, the fruit of Jupiter will help, Pope Innocent XIII, 1721 to 1724, whose family crest bore an eagle, Jupiter's symbol. De Balneus Etruriae, from the baths of Etruria, Pope Gregory XVI, 1831 to 1846, who came from a region famous for its thermal baths. But as the list neared its end, the faithful grew uneasy. The prophecy spoke of persecution, destruction, and the final pope, Petrus Romanus, who would reign amid chaos. One prominent theory suggests that the prophecy was not written by Saint Malachy at all, but rather by a Benedictine scholar or even an occultist familiar with Nostradamus' cryptic style. The late 16th century was an era rife with prophetic writings, and the Malachy text may have been an attempt to capitalize on the heightened millenarian fears of the time. The fact that no earlier manuscript exists before its 1590 appearance has fueled these suspicions. Saint Malachy's prophecy consists of 112 short Latin phrases, each corresponding to a future pope, beginning with Celestine II, 1143 to 1144. The descriptions are enigmatic, often symbolic, yet eerily accurate. Some believe they describe papal coats of arms, personal histories, or even hidden meanings in their names. For example, ex Castro Tiberis, from a castle on the Tiber, Celestine II was born in Città di Castello, near the Tiber River. Peregrinus Apostolicus, pilgrim apostle, Pius VI was exiled by Napoleon, dying in captivity. De Mediatate Lunae, from the half-moon, John Paul I reigned for only 33 days, roughly a lunar month. But it is the final entries that stir dread. The last popes and the end time. The prophecy grows darker as it approaches the present. The last few popes are described with chilling brevity. John Paul II, 1978 to 2005. De labor solis, of the labor of the sun. Some interpret this as his tireless global travels, the sun's labor, while others note he was born and buried during solar eclipses. Benedict XVI, 2005 to 2013. Gloria Olivi, the glory of the olive, the order of Saint Benedict, from which he took his name, is associated with the olive branch, a symbol of peace. His resignation, an event unprecedented in centuries, left many wondering if this was a sign of the Church's unraveling. The most unsettling aspect of Saint Malachi's list was how uncannily accurate it seemed for certain pontiffs. One of the most striking examples was Pope Pius X, 1903–1914, whose motto, Instaurare omnia in Christo, to restore all things in Christ, mirrored the prophecy's description for his reign: religio depopulata, religion laid waste. At first glance, this seemed contradictory. Pius X was a staunch traditionalist who fought against modernism. However, his papacy coincided with the rise of atheistic regimes, World War I's devastation, and the decline of Catholic influence in Europe, a spiritual laying waste that many saw as fulfillment of the prophecy. What made Saint Malachi's prophecy so enduring was not just its accuracy, but its inescapable sense of doom. Unlike vague Nostradamus quatrains, this was a clear, numbered list, one that seemed to be counting down to something catastrophic. The closer it got to the present, the more believers scrutinized each new pope, searching for signs that the end was near. When Pope Benedict XVI resigned in 2013, an event almost unheard of in church history, many saw it as fulfillment of Malachi's vision. His title, Gloria Olivi, the glory of the olive, was linked to the Benedictine order, whose symbol includes olives, and interpreted as a brief, transitional papacy before the final pope. The greatest danger of Saint Malachi's prophecy may not be its accuracy, but its power to shape perception. If enough people believe the next pope will be the last, could that belief itself trigger a crisis, a schism, a collapse of faith, or even a false flag of divine judgment? Many prophecy scholars draw parallels between Malachi's vision and Revelation chapter 17, where the great harlot who sits on many waters is identified with the seven hills, an unmistakable reference to Rome. This whore of Babylon is said to be drunk with the blood of the martyrs, before being burned and desolated by the beast and the 10 kings. If this is indeed Rome, then Malachi's prophecy may be a prelude to the apocalypse itself, with the Catholic Church's corruption serving as the final straw before divine wrath is unleashed. Another terrifying possibility is that the end of the papal line does not mean the absence of a pope, but rather the rise of multiple claimants, a great schism worse than that of the 14th century, when rival popes in Rome and Avignon tore Christendom apart. Is Malachi's prophecy divine warning or mere coincidence? Skeptics argue it was a 16th century forgery, yet its unnerving accuracy persists. If true, then we stand at the threshold of the last days, a time of schism, persecution, and the fall of the Holy See. As the world watches, the question remains: when Petrus Romanus passes, will the gates of hell prevail?